Mm.
Hi, Samantha Tong, Labrakeeta Marketing, again with another one of my expert interviews. So I've got Alexis here today, and we're going to talk about social media advertising. So Alexis, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, Samantha. Hi, so my name is Alexi. I'm from Digitron Group. So it's a digital agency mainly focused on digital marketing, helping businesses, especially small businesses, get started with digital marketing. And social media advertising is a good example of something that is often like scary for business owners. They think it's complex or they have tried it before and they didn't get results. So usually they leave it on the side and therefore they miss a big opportunity. So my purpose with this company is to help them figure out, understand that doesn't have to be complex with the right strategy. If they make the things right and they use it at the right stage of their business as well, it can be a great and effective lever for their growth. Due to my personal storytelling, when I grew my first businesses, I did a lot of mistakes doing social media advertising too early or in the wrong way. And so what I want to do is now share my experience and help them do it in the right way and not make the same mistakes I did before.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think a lot of people are probably in the same boat where I certainly spoken to a lot of clients, and when I bring up social media advertising, I think they will get the organic side that needs to be done, although they're not necessarily going about it in the right way. But convincing them that actually paid for is also a very powerful tool can be difficult because they've tried it, or they've heard someone else who's tried it and it hasn't worked, or it was too expensive for what they got back. And I think that's probably because people are trying to do it themselves without, someone like you or me getting involved. Do you find that's the case?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's a mistake I've done as well. It's like when you try it for the first time, even if you go to a course or try to learn or have digital marketing knowledge, if it's the first time or the first month you do Facebook ads, for example, you will make mistakes. And I think it's like everything in life, if you don't persevere, like you won't make it, So you need to get wrong first and in order to learn. Or if you don't want to make those mistakes and learn a lot of money as I did, it's better. You will save money by going to an expert who will help you avoid those costly mistakes.
Yeah, cheaper. We may charge, but it's cheaper in the long run.
Yeah.
What would you say the most common mistakes you see are?
So in my experience is in Facebook ads. So I'll
Yeah.
take the example of Facebook ads. So it's really powerful because it allows you to target very precisely individuals according to their interests, their behaviors, and a lot of things. And so this is the power of Facebook ads. But usually I would say the biggest mistake then is business owners, they don't know enough their target audience, or they have a target audience which is too broad. And therefore, when they do Facebook advertising and they target those people, the message is not tailor-made enough for them according to their needs and their behaviors. When we are on Facebook and we see some advertising, if it sounds too generic, or if it doesn't specifically address our concern or problems or pain or our values or anything, so we feel like the person doesn't really address the message specifically to us, we just keep scrolling because social media, people don't have much attention span. And so then businesses, if they do this, they just compete with every other business who do the same service as them, who target the same people, and they just nothing makes them different. And usually then they don't get good performance with their ads. I would say that's the biggest mistake.
Right. So it comes back to and I find the same. I'm more B2B, so I do more LinkedIn advertising personally, but that's very similar. Very familiar story. I think it's getting the basic strategy right before you go headlong into any advertising, I guess. But yeah, I take your point, especially with social media where people have short attention spans. It comes back to your segmentation, your targeting and positioning. STP as we call it in the marketing spheres. It's getting those basics right before you go headlong into trying to get results, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say there is also content as well.
Yeah.
Usually, like if you post organically some content, you can see which content perform best with your target audience, and then the best thing to do then is to use this to target similar people with advertising and promote the similar content, because then you can increase your chances to have like a content which performs, instead of, because otherwise the other approach, but it costs money, is what startups do when they want to do growth hacking. Is just spend money in advertising, testing a lot of different targets, different messaging, different creatives, basically change everything one parameter at a time until they find what stick, but that's cost a lot of money, and usually business owners, they don't have this investments they can make upfront in advertising. So usually it's better to use what they know with organic, and just use this to target the same people with the same content that already works.
Yes, I should probably explain to people who might be sitting there scratching their heads going, what's organic? So organic is the general post that you put on social media. It's the ones you don't pay for, it's just the ones that you post. So that's a good tip. If something's performing very well from an organic point of view, it stands to reason, as long as you have your target audience following you, it stands to reason that would perform well as an advert as well. Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess the same with any learning that you've had from any of your other marketing as well. If you've had a email campaign that's done particularly well on a particular subject, I imagine it's the same thing. Do you use avatars as part of your?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what we same things like avatars and buyer persona. Is like try to take a paper and put a name, put a photo, put an age, how many children, what do they like, hobbies, interests, everything that can help you understand the psycho demographic of your target audience is definitely important, because when you have this on paper, it basically helps you figure out who this person really is and how you can sell to them, and then you can use those points of the avatar to target those people. So as we said before, be much more precise than just targeting an age or gender or anything. It needs to be very specific.
Yes. So I guess it's helpful if people look at their current customers, but also think about who they were, because sometimes people have a certain type of customer, but actually they'd rather have a different type of customer, and that's why they need to advertise.
Yes, but then it's more challenging, because if we take Facebook as, for example, if you can do what is called lookalike audiences. So Facebook has the power, because with the data, to do for us the job of finding similar people. Yeah. So those the people we already have, the customers we already have. So this makes the job really easy, because then you just let Facebook do the job, and if your message is performing with your audience and your actual customer, if you target similar people, it's likely to work as well. But if you want to target different people, that's why it's challenging, and you can never know first try. That's why you basically are still to test if you want to enter a new market or get new target audience directly with advertising, without using the organic, as we said before, and without using some kind of feedback on your communication and your other marketing activities. If you just go in the dark, you can't get it right first time. So yes, that's a risk.
True. And I should mention, you can do the same with LinkedIn, by the way. If you're more business to business, if you've got an existing type of customer, you can tell LinkedIn who your existing customers are, and it will find similar for you. That's one way of doing it. Or you can just select, if you know who you want to target, you can go in and select, not to the same depth as Facebook, I have to admit, but it's because it's business to business. So it's more, with LinkedIn, it's more about job roles and size of business, geography, that kind of thing. Whereas with Facebook, it's about behaviors and likes and desires, which is really powerful especially with business consumer. Sometimes business to business as well, depending on what they do. Sometimes Facebook works there as well.
Yes, but it's much more emotional in B2C Facebook ad, and B2B, you target regarding to their position. and the size of their company and all those things to show that. And it's what people, it's why icon-based marketing is becoming more and more popular. What I said for Facebook, and same thing for you with LinkedIn, is targeting people according to not only their position, but the size of their company, the industry, and then basically your message will be tailor-made for the situation of their company, the challenges the company is facing, the responsibilities of this person and the size of the company, rather than just be generic for all salespeople or any company who might benefit from help with their digital marketing, you know.
And that you sort of touched on a point there that's probably worth mentioning is helping people solve problems that they have, or obviously meeting needs, and speaking directly to them. That's really important across any marketing communications. But yes, especially with social media, where you've really got to grab their attention really quickly. And sometimes that will mean that you have, I don't know if you have the same thing, but I sometimes have to run multiple ads for different audiences for some clients.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, because the message might be slightly different, because they might deal with, I don't know, they might deal with people who work in the public sector, and they've got budget issues, and they might work with people in, I don't know, banking, to pick something completely different, and their issues are going to be something completely different. It's not likely to be budget constraints. So it makes sense to tailor your ad to the audience for that specific. So for some, I've had conversations with clients going, oh, I don't know, they're really struggling with the message because they've got different audiences. Well, it's fine to have different messages.
Yes, that's always what we say with marketing. It needs to be tailored for people, and you need to segment the audience. It goes back to what you said earlier.
Go back to the basics of marketing. It's the digital world has changed things in so many ways, but you still got to get those old traditional basic strategy stuff right first.
I think that's very interesting what you say. It's like, I think it's also a mistake people make. They're looking for the latest trends, the shiny object, the quick wins. And basically, it's not that just getting the basics right first and then optimize your campaigns with the latest trends. But at the beginning, just getting the basics right is the most important thing. If you take the things the wrong way around, just trying to get to use the latest trends to get the quick wins first, it won't work.
It's back to front, yeah. Don't jump on TikTok until you know your audience is there and what to say.
Exactly. And like when we say, oh, no, TikTok is the best thing, Facebook is the best thing, it depends on your target audience. And even if like one of your competitors on TikTok, they might sell the same service as you, but they might have a different audience, you know. Like there are a lot of services or products that can be for people no matter their age, for example, but the messaging won't be the same and the platform won't be the same if you target somebody who is 20 or 60. And even if you're a company who target people across age, the creatives might be different. Even if you solve the same problem, have the same message, the creative should be different. In order to catch their attention, as you said before, we need to get their attention first. That's also very important in advertising, to have something that catch their attention and makes people want to learn more about what you want to say. It's a challenge as well. This is where you need to be creative. You need to have a strong marketing message as well. So all those things mixed together are what makes the success of an ad. Knowing your audience, but also be creative as well.
Yes. Getting that right, in my experience, also helps bring the cost down. In LinkedIn, certainly, if people are interacting, LinkedIn then prefers that ad, and it won't cost you as much to get in front of as many people. I assume, I mean, Google Ads are the same, by the way. I assume that's the same on Facebook.
Yes, it's about relevance, you know. Platforms, they want it's still social media, so their job is still propose content that is relevant to their audience, to the people. So, and they help businesses with that as well. That's why Facebook does the lookalike audience, for example, because then they know that the advertising content they show people will be more likely to be of interest to them. So
Yes, yes, because it keeps people
And they,
engaged. So from their point of view, it works from their side as well, because they don't want to bombard people with ads
yes,
that mean people turn Facebook off.
yes, and they reward companies for providing ads which are relevant by making the advertising costs go down as well. So it's a win-win.
It is, and I think that's what's put a lot of people off, in my experience speaking to them. They've either heard or tried to do advertising themselves, and it's been really expensive. It's been really expensive because they haven't had someone to help them target it properly, to get it as relevant, to get people engaged.
I think another problem as well can be people who do advertising too early, so they don't have their customer funnel, a good idea of their customer funnel yet. So they want to drive more awareness, for example, about their brand, but they don't nurture the people they already have in their funnel, or they don't have the clear idea on or where of the people and how to nurture them in the funnel. So they just spend money in advertising, they don't get leads. So then it's like they're like, oh, it's not working. Maybe it is working. You drive more awareness, but you still need to keep nurturing those people, maybe by getting their email address and inviting them to a webinar or email marketing, or even retargeting advertising. Advertising can be, often people think advertising is to target new people who never heard about your business, but on Facebook, for example, you can target people who already know about your brand, who already interact with your website, a specific page on your website, who already subscribe to your newsletter. And so this is where also you can target people according to their behaviors with your company, not just their behaviors in their personal life. This is very powerful as well, because this is also, this again helps the companies, organizations provide content which is relevant to people, depending according to where they are in the customer funnel, you know.
Yes, yeah, and that's a really important point. Like you say, you need to nurture leads. It isn't just about so there's been some research actually on this. In B2C, business to consumer, the split should be in terms of how much resource you put into brand awareness versus lead generation, in terms of the advertising side, is 60-40. So 60% those new people you're talking about, brand awareness, so that when someone later on thinks they need your service, they remember you, not your competitor. And then 40% is the lead generation and lead nurturing side of things, which is about, like you say, they're further along in that funnel. So they might be existing customers, depending on what type of product you're talking about. They might be further along in the funnel. They might be someone who's purchased from you before, who you want to purchase again. And then there's and in B2B it's similar, except it's more of a 50-50 split. So slightly less on the lead generation, slightly less on the brand awareness, a little bit more on that lead generation and nurturing side. So it's interesting you say that. So that is something that with all marketing communications, you need to think about where that person is in that buyer journey, which I guess in B2B is often a very long funnel.
Yes.
Especially a big purchase, big machinery or something. Whereas most B2C, with the exception of automotive and that kind of thing, it's going to be ongoing purchases. You know, your Mars bar, you want them to buy them every, however many per week. So you've got to really think about that as well.
Yes, and for in B2B, especially, it's very important to think about that, because, for example, the sales team and the marketing team need to work together. So if you run advertising and you get people in the funnel, the sales team still need to call them on the phone or just keep nurturing them from a sales perspective as well. And usually, because the two departments don't work together and they work in silos, they just keep blaming each other for not performing. And so then the organization, the business owner thinks like the advertising didn't work, or the sales team is not performing because they call people, where they should just mix their effort together and focus on people.
Yes. Funnily enough, one of my first interviews was on exactly that subject. I think both know Barry Clark.
Yes.
So check out that video if you're interested in that part of it. But yeah, that's absolutely right. But sometimes sales just think, oh, well, it didn't work, it's a waste of time. And I don't think they always understand. They really hopefully get lead generation, you hope, and take advantage of that. But brand awareness is probably a bit more alien to your average sales guy. So I guess that's but then it's our job as communicators, I guess, to get that across. We should be able to explain that to them. But yeah, so for you, even with the advertising, I think most people think of advertising as the brand awareness side, but even within advertising, especially on social media, I guess I find there's the same within social media, especially, that they could be at any stage of the funnel.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's a very, very important point. If we take Facebook ad, for example, you can build some kind of awareness ads, and so then you focus on telling your brand story, for example. And if you focus on conversion ads, because you can basically on Facebook choose what is the purpose of the campaign. And usually another mistake people make is that they run their advertising, they target people who never who don't know their company, and they want to optimize the campaign. They choose conversion and they choose lead, and then their cost of advertising goes through the roof. It's because when you try to target people who never heard about you before, it's better to build this brand awareness, telling your company story, and then do over advertising, retargeting those people, which is conversion advertising, where they are later more in the sales funnel. And so they already know about your company, your purpose, why they should buy from you, because it's what it is about today. It's about your why. It's not about what you do. It's about why you do it first. And then focus on the second advertising, focusing on same people, then explaining the benefit for them and what you sell.
Yes, that makes sense. And by the way, it's the same in LinkedIn. You choose what your the objectives of your ad is. So you can say, you know, if brand awareness, or it's lead generation, or whatever. That's the same there. And of course they use different metrics depending on what you're trying to do. And yeah, that's very true. It's why brand awareness is so important. If people have never heard of you, are they likely to go with you? Probably not. We're talking about social media advertising here, which is one. We're talking about tactics, but it should integrate with all your other marketing that you're doing. So your email marketing, if you're driving traffic to your website, you should be thinking about marketing automation. How do you turn those into leads? So one thing to mention is probably for most businesses, just doing social media advertising in isolation is not going to work.
No, no, absolutely not.
Yeah, so yeah, really think about all those other sides of things as well, and how it all comes together.
Schedule the post, I would say Hootsuite is very good, which allow you, as we said, to plan the post ahead, because, for example, for social media, it's not all about general best practice about what is the best time and day to post, because what is true for an industry or other organization might not be true for your customers. So the best thing is to know your target audience. Sorry, when are they on Facebook or on LinkedIn? So when is the best time to post? But if you don't know that yet, or if you do know that, it's better to still try to post at the best time possible. It will help your marketing efforts. And in order to do that, especially if you don't want to be sitting in front of the computer and have to manually do it on a Friday evening, for example, it's very important to just also not having to think about it all the time. And when you're working, keep thinking, oh, in 30 minutes I need to post something. It's good to have something like Hootsuite, for example, to schedule the post ahead.
Yeah, I started using, I use something similar. I use something called SocialBee.
Okay.
And that also can pull in things. It can do some really fancy stuff, like pull in RSS feeds if there's a particular feed that you want to promote and that kind of thing, and it can have it set to automatically post your blogs and all sorts. For most of my customers, that's probably most of my clients, that's probably a bit advanced, but it's still very useful to have that tool where, like you say, you might not have time. You might have time on a Monday, for example, to sit there and do all of your posts and have them scheduled, rather than remembering every day to post. Because I think that's another area that people fall down. Like you say, when they're testing, finding out what's the best time, who their target audience is, what messages are working best when they're doing all that organic stuff. That can be hard work if you're doing it yourself, especially if you're not using one of these tools. Another thing you touched on, I think is quite interesting, because I find the same thing is you're talking about the brand story. I find story content, whether it's a story about the company or employees, that goes down very well as well, especially if you're doing something for charity or something. The story of and stories in terms of case studies as well, especially in B2B. That's some of the best performing, whether it's organic or paid for, some of that is the best performing content on social media.
What would you say, for example, is the best best content to promote for each stage of the funnel in B2B on LinkedIn? Because case studies, for example, are they relevant at the top of the funnel, or are they better at the bottom of the funnel?
I think that depends. Really, there's no sort of hard or fast rule, but sometimes it can. Sometimes that's further along the line. People are doing some research. If you've got case studies in your website, that's really useful content that people can research your business a bit more and decide if they want to work with you. Sometimes, though, it's excellent brand awareness, because, oh, I'm the same type of company. I have the same issues.
Yes.
So sometimes that works really well with people that have never heard of you before, and now they have heard of you. Now they might think about you in the longer term. So I think it can work. A case studies is one of those rare ones that can work at different stages of the sales funnel. But yeah, certainly use that at multiple stages. So if you've got a customer who's potentially interested, if you've got a case study and they're in the same industry facing the same issues, make sure you give them that case study.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, I'd say the case studies are one of those things that's really, especially in B2B, it's really useful at multiple stages. And that's a kind of social proof, as well as, I think people understand the need to look for recommendations, testimonials. Case studies are social proof as well, especially if you can't always get permission to use their name, especially if you solved a problem that they shouldn't have had in the first place and they don't want to admit. But yeah, if you can get, especially if you can get a name to it, really powerful content on every platform, not just social media, but definitely if you've got a case study, get that out on social media, because if someone is in that industry and they see it, really useful. And yeah, like I say, any type of storytelling, I find it always gets the best reactions. And is there any information that any other information that we haven't discussed that you want people to know about social media advertising?
Just for me, it's try to be like an advocate of social media advertising done at the right time in the right way for businesses. I think you really I would like more businesses to understand this huge opportunity and how they can leverage this opportunity in the right way. If they are the right stage with their business, if they already have over marketing efforts which are performing, if they know who their target audience is, because that's mandatory, otherwise they won't get any result. But if they are at this stage, I would really like to see more businesses take advantage of this opportunity, especially to do something that their competitors are not doing, especially for small businesses. Usually their competitors are not doing advertising. So if you have a precise niche, for example, if you have a niche, if your business has a niche and your target audience is a niche, which is what successful small businesses do, they try to have a niche, then you can deep down, you can keep being specific with your niche, but deep down and reach more people who are in that niche with advertising, you can reach people in other cities, even in other countries.
Yes.
So that can be a great way for small businesses to keep growing while keeping the same customer base, the same niche, and the same message, which then will keep performing instead of trying to diversify.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. And I definitely agree with that. I think it's a really powerful tool that a lot of businesses are missing out, and some of the slightly larger businesses you'd be surprised are missing out on as well, because I mean, we talked about the funnel, it can be existing customers and so on, but I think it is, you can't get in front of people who don't know who you are via social media without advertising.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that's the bottom line. You're missing out if you don't advertise. And I'm sure you're the same. I've got some great results for clients using social media advertising the right way. So yeah, if you need help, I guess LinkedIn, I'm probably the best person to speak to. Alexi, if you need help with Facebook advertising, that's definitely more his bag than mine. But yeah, thank you very much for that information. It's very useful, and I think it's something that a lot of businesses miss. Something that a lot of businesses could make a lot of use of.
Absolutely. Thank you, Samantha, for
thank
interview.
you.
It was a pleasure.
All right, thank you everyone. Thank you everyone for listening, and see you again soon.